Hey guys, welcome to Warhammer Stuff. Today we have the Deathwatch versus the Tau with their Sept Daleth. So let's go ahead and check out the armies.
Alright, so for today I am bringing 2,000 points of Tau from the Daleth Sept, because the Sept gives them all a unique abilities. It's basically every time a ranged attack is made against an infantry unit, if the attacker is not within engagement range, I get the benefits of light cover. And all my Tau Auxilia, which would be the Kroot and the Vespids, can, as long as they're a part of the same detachment as me, can actually receive the benefits of the Tau tactical philosophy. So the aggressive one, the one that allows me to run and shoot and stuff like that, or like other abilities. You know, the first 3 turns where I get all these benefits. The Tau Auxilia normally do not get that, but with this Daleth they can. And so I wanted to try that and see how that goes, because I wanted to try the non-regular Tau. And so, off to my commander, which is in a Cold Star battlesuit. Now, this battlesuit is interesting because it is designed for rapid movement. 14-inch movement. So the overall strategy of my army, I wanted to say, is in the last game, they got pushed back. They shot and obliterated most of my enemies, and then there was only a few of them left to kill me, and they still did a lot of damage. So this whole strategy is for me to be able to take the battlefield and push forward and do lightning strikes. So I'm going to try to wipe out his army on turn 1, essentially, or cripple it severely. And so, yeah, let's see how this goes. And first, my commander in a Cold Star battlesuit. He has a 3-up armor save, sadly. I could have given him a relic to give him a 2-up and a 5-up, but that I figured was kind of irrelevant. I gave him 2 shield drones though, so that'll be good. He has a fusion blaster, which is basically a melta-gun. And then he has a plasma rifle, which is close to a melta. And then he has... Actually, he does not have a plasma rifle because I replaced it with the Nova Surge plasma rifle. This is a special upgrade to the plasma rifle, which basically gives it AP, 1 more AP, and ignores invulnerable saves. So I thought, yeah, that's worth 15 or 20 points. And then he has the relic, the Honor Guard Gauntlet, Strength 12, AP -4, Damage 3. And then he has the high output burst cannon, which is Assault 10. Now he also has, what do I call it? He has the high altitude maneuvers. Once per game, he can go into strategic reserves. He has target lock, which means enemies do not get the benefit of light cover, so very good for me to shoot at him. He has 4-up invulnerable save, and he has the warlord trait, precision of the. Can you get your hand out of the screen? It's like I'm trying to cover things. He has the precision of the hunter, so each time this warlord makes an attack, I can reroll the hit and wound roll. That's going to be very good in clutch points. And most importantly, he has position relay, which I gave to him in a sacrifice for one of his guns. Once per battle round, I can have a Sept strategic unit show up 1 round earlier around him. And yeah, and then he has all, of course, his all other abilities. And then, moving on to the Ethereal, I needed a second HQ because I am bringing a, a battalion. And so, move your hand out of the way. And so, I normally would not have brought the Ethereal because he's a bit expensive, 80 points for a buffer. But I gave him a shield drone to make him tougher. And he actually has some pretty interesting stuff. So I gave him the hover drone, so he has a movement characteristic of 10 in the fly. Very good. He has a 4-up invulnerable save natively. And he has, I gave him the relic Dynamic Mirror Field. Basically, he can never be targeted for ranged attacks unless he is the closest target, or the model is firing at him is within 12 inches. And he has a 5-up invulnerable save, but that's irrelevant. And his abilities that he can give, what is his abilities? I'll have to look into my thing. So basically, I gave him Sense of Stone, which basically he can give a squad a 5-up Feel No Pain, and Wisdom of the Guides, which is the entire reason I gave him stuff. So basically, on the command phase, I roll a dice, and on a 3-up, I get a command point. It's the whole reason I brought him, that one thing. So we'll see how that goes. And then for troops, I have 3 units of Breacher teams. No, I shouldn't have. No, crap. 2 units of Breacher teams. They're good enough. And then I gave him a unit of Kroot And so their basic idea is to push forward, help stall the enemy. Because of my Sept, these guys will be treated as light cover, and because the Sept gives the abilities to the Tau Auxilia, they receive all the abilities as well, so these guys are getting all the benefits. And then of course 2 Devilfish with Seeker missiles each. And so these guys have Accelerator Burst Cannon, Smart Missile System, Seeker Missiles, so these guys are going to be, for transports, they're actually very good. They're 115 points apiece with all the upgrades I gave them, but they're pretty good. And then on to, well, this is fast attack, but Pathfinders with rail rifles. These things were very strong, and if they successfully wound, they do a mortal wound in addition. So 3 of those, and the rest of these guys for giving marker lights. And then on to elites. Now, these are Crisis Bodyguards. Technically speaking, these guys are non-force organizations chart. I brought them in for supporting the main character. And so I basically gave them all fusion blasters, Melta missile pod for extra shots, just 2 shots, and then a plasma rifle. So I learned from the last one that the flamers, while good against hordes, it has some issues. It led to really long fights against well-armored enemies. So I was like, you know what? Always prepare to face Space Marines. That's pretty much the going thing for an average list. Always fight Space Marines, which is the rule that GW should take to heart for their balancing. Alright, and then I have, they're just bodyguards. They have 4-up invulnerable saves. The Sergeant has a 2-up armor save. The rest have a 3-up. They have a bunch of drones. I brought the maximum amount of drones. I brought, 1 marker light drone, and then all the rest are shield drones. So I wanted this unit to get in there and not die and just... This is a tar pit with guns. And then I have the Ghost Keeled Battlesuit. An interesting thing that has very few guns. He has some stealth drones. I brought him in just like to take the wounds that he doesn't. But basically, he is going to get in, he can deploy in the middle of the zone. He's not the strongest. He's not the most dangerous. He's not as tough as... Get the hand out of the way. But I gave him basically like anti-armor stuff, because what I did learn is that I can at least really just whittle them down, and my Pathfinders and crew can take care of hordes. And yeah, he has -1 to be hit, and ranged. He has infiltration. He has a lot of special abilities. And controls the drones and stuff. So yeah, and if he moves over enemies, he can on a 2-up does 3 mortal wounds. A lot of special abilities. And he has, if he's charged in Overwatch, he hits on 5s, and the first time he uses it, it costs 0 CP. So it's up in the air. He's basically anti-armor. So we'll see how that turns out. Actually, I don't know how strong these stealth drones are. What do they got? They got... I can't see. Well, whatever. Anyway, and then we have the Vespids for the fast attack. So these are actually very surprising and interesting. They can deep strike, but what is so good about them is their guns. Their guns are Assault 2, Strength 5, AP -3, 2 damage. I looked at that, I was like, that's really good. And so I will get the first strike with them. I'm talking about 10 shots, average shooting, but it'll be fine. And then, of course, I brought the Riptide, which, after I brought it, I realized it kind of sucks a bit. I gave him 2 shield missile drones, which are shields and missile drones. So they'll have 4-up invulnerable saves, and they have pretty good missiles. So he has a plasma rifle, a missile pod, and the ion accelerator, which is basically anti-stick. I'm going mostly just anti-armor. That's pretty much it. That's what I'm thinking. I think it's the best. I mean... yeah, overall. And then he has 4-up invulnerable save natively. He has the Nova Reactor, which basically can buff one of my abilities, give him like a 2d6 extra movement, or give his main weapon extra shots, stuff like that. I gave him target lock, so no one can get the benefits of light cover against him. And yeah, so we'll see how this goes. And this is 2,000 points of Tau. Of aggressive Tau, so we'll see how this goes.
Alright, you guys, so today I have 2,000 points of Deathwatch, and I'm kind of excited. I'm a little nervous because Deathwatch are elaborate to say the least. Out of all of the Space Marine chapters, they're the ones that are like a Swiss Army knife. And so they have a lot of interesting things. So they get to pick battlefield roles that they are really good against. And they actually are able to have kill teams, which are combinations of troops, which are all troops. So actually my entire army is troops, with the exception of that one biker squad at the back, because I had some points left over for fast attack, I guess. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. So starting off with my HQs, and my warlord is a watchmaster, and he just has regular weapon and his gun, but I gave him a couple of interesting things. So Deathwatch, because they're a combination of all the chapters, can actually pick army traits and warlord traits from different chapters. Now, not the ones inside the actual codex, but in the Space Marine codex, each of the chapters have a warlord trait and a chapter tactic. And so I gave him, I think the warlord trait is Paragon of their chapter, which allowed me to choose, and I chose Brilliant Strategist, which is the Dark Angel warlord trait. I believe it's the warlord trait.
Yeah.
Which basically means that whenever he's within 6 inches of a unit, I can pick one, and if it's the Tactical Doctrine is active, then the Devastator Doctrine is active. If the Assault Doctrine is active, then that for that unit, then the Tactical Doctrine is active. I also gave him the relic, the Honor Vehement, which basically gives them the extra attack from Angel of Death, except all the way through. So it doesn't matter what round of combat it is, they'll always have that +1 attack. And then I also gave him a second warlord trait because I could, which was Optimized Priority. So basically units can do actions without the range and shoot without the range, without the action failing. So they can shoot and do actions. I thought that might be useful given how small my army is. And then moving on, so they had 3 unique characters. I only took 2 out of the 3 because the other one is a watch captain or something. I don't know, but anyway, so I picked their unique chaplain, which is Chaplain Cassius. So this is apparently him when he's younger. So even in the book, they're like, if you want to be lore accurate, don't take him with any Primaris in your army. And I was like, yeah, okay, not going to do that. But so he has a pistol which can access the Deathwatch special ammunition, and he has an Artificer Crozius. He can only take 1, so I don't think Deathwatch have the Master of Sanctity upgrade. So he can only do 1 litany per turn, but I guess because he's a unique character, he has +1 to his litany. So basically on a 2-up they go off, which is nice. And he can let units within 6 inches of him use his leadership, which probably won't come into play at all, because I imagine it will either not be relevant or the unit will just be dead. So anyway, moving on. Then I have Codicier Natorian, which is their unique librarian. Apparently he's from the not Blood Angels, the Blood Ravens originally, which is interesting to me. So he has a unique power sword, which is just AP -4 and D3 damage. And then he actually has I guess an ability if he's casting Smite or any Witchfire psychic powers, he gets +1 to that cast. And so obviously he has Smite, and I gave him 2 from the Xeno Purge, so the Deathwatch specific librarian powers. So 1 is Witchfire, so Psychic Cleanse. On a roll 1d6 for each enemy model within 9 inches of this Psyker, and on a 6, that model's unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So if he's just like in the middle of like a whole bunch of things, like I just roll dice for each model that he's within 9 inches of. And then the other one is Fortified with Contempt. Basically I pick an infantry or biker unit within 18 inches of him, and they have a Feel No Pain of 5-up. And so we will see how that goes. And then, okay, so those are my HQs. So moving into my troops, I have a Indomitor kill team. So these are heavy intercessors, and they have the Executor bolt rifles. There is an Executor heavy bolter in there. And then I have 2 Eradicators in the squad with the heavy melter rifle. and the multi-melta, and then 3 inceptors with the plasma exterminators.
Can you explain why the squad
so,
is such a mosh posh of different units?
Yeah, so with each kill, there's like 4 different types of kill teams, and they have different units that you can put in each specific kill team. But they're all troops, so all of these guys are troops right here. The Eradicators, the Inceptors, and they're usually obviously different things. But I guess the thing you do is you do the combat squads, and so you'll take the squads in the kill teams and then split them off. But what it means is because they're troops, they're all objective secured, which is pretty interesting. And then these guys also have the kill team specialization, Malleus, which means that they reroll wound rolls of 1 against heavy support, Lord of Wars, and dedicated transport units, so like your Devilfish, for instance. And then if that is the battlefield roll I've picked for my whole army, they just get to reroll wound rolls as a whole. And so that's my 1 kill team here. Who is it? Indomitor kill team. Over to their left, I have a squad of 6, literally just Deathwatch veterans. Now the models were a little hard to find in TTS, so there's no Vanguard vets in this. It's a very specific squad of just Deathwatch veterans. So one guy, the Ultramarine here, has a heavy Thunder Hammer, which is unique to the Deathwatch. It's AP -3 and it's damage 4, strength ×2. So he's just a really, really heavy hitter. Then I have a Black Shield, which I'm still not sure lore-wise, but I didn't really read it. But essentially, they can take 2 melee weapons. So I gave him a Power Maul, which is +3 strength, AP 1/1 damage, and a Power Sword, which is +1 strength, AP -3 single damage. And Black Shields, if they have 2 combat weapons, they actually get +1 attack. And so I'll see how that goes. And then I have 3 Deathwatch veterans with just dual lightning claws. The only models with dual lightning claws though were jump pack guys, so they don't have jump packs, but that's just what it is. And then the Watch Sergeant has a Xenophase blade, which is also unique to the Deathwatch, which you can't take invulnerable saves against it. So that's pretty cool, but it's a single damage, so it's just kind of like a souped up power sword. So I don't know if it'll be as useful, but I wanted to take it and try it and see what happens there. And then moving over, I have a Proteus kill team, and these guys have the Aquila kill team specialization. So it means on top of the one I picked for the whole army, they get to pick another battlefield role. So elites, troops, HQs, heavy support, whatever it is, and they get to reroll wound rolls of 1 against that. Now the caveat with Aquila is that they don't get to have if that's the one I chose for the whole army, they don't get to reroll all wounds. They just get 2 different ones that they can reroll ones on. So the squad is split 5 and 5, 5 Terminators, 5 veterans. Now all the veterans in this one have the shotguns, which have 3 different shot types, I guess, and then they also can access the Deathwatch special ammunition. And so that's pretty cool. I'm going to give the shotguns a try. It looks like they have like a flamer version, which is 8-inch range, strength 5 version at assault 2, and a AP 1/2 damage 1 at assault 2 as well on the shotgun. So it'll be a lot of just maneuverability. Now short range, granted, but interesting maneuverability. Now with the Terminators, I have 3 with Cyclone missile launchers and Chain Fists. And then 1 with a Thunder Hammer and a Storm Shield for the better invuln save, and armor as well. And then 1 with just dual Lightning Claws, because I figured why not have a little extra swings in there. And that is my, who are these guys? Proteus kill team. It's hard to keep track of all the names of these kill teams. So right behind them is another kill team. Oh shoot! It doesn't tell me the kill team name. Hold on, I might just have to click into it. Spectrus kill team. Okay, there you go. And basically these are the sneaky sneaks. So I have 5 infiltrators, which make up the main part of it. They have their 12-inch deep strike bubble, so I can just kind of daisy chain them as far as I can. in the back just to help avoid that. And then they were able to take 4 now they're able to take 1 more, but I didn't have the points. With eliminators with las fusils, so they have 4 of those. Now they have no specialization, so they're just going to shoot at what they're going to shoot at, and I don't really know what that is. But so these guys are also troops. And then to their left is another kill team, which is kill team Proteus. Okay, so another Proteus kill team. This one I didn't take the Terminators in, I took Bikers. Now these Bikers have power axes, and except I think one of them has a Thunder Hammer, maybe? It was hard to...
Heavy Thunder Hammer, yes.
Oh, no, he doesn't. They all have power axes, because there's only one model type for each one.
Oh.
So it was kind of hard. And then a Vanguard Vet with a Heavy Thunder Hammer, and so he's going to fly with them. That's what it was. And then the Watch veterans in that squad as well have the Stalker pattern bolt guns, so they're heavy 1, AP -2, 2 damage, and they have access to the specialized shots. And these guys have the Dominatus kill team specialization, which allows them to go after elites. So their main target is elites. They get to reroll wound rolls of 1 against elites, or completely if that is the one that I end up picking for my whole army. And then my only non-troop choice here is these fast attack bikes. 3 of them have the power axes. All of their weapons only had 1 damage. So I figured I would just kind of hit middle of the road with the power axe because it's 2 strength and 2 AP. And then the biker sergeant doesn't have a power fist. It's the only model. He has a thunder hammer. And that was it. So that is 2,000 points of Deathwatch Marines.
Alright, for today's mission we got Secure Missing Artifacts. This is a Control 1, Control 2, Control More. And we, before deployment, before reserves and transports, we each can move a objective marker about up to 6 inches horizontally. And then, well, we actually move 2, so every objective but the center one can be moved by us, alternating. And so that'll change up the battlefield heavily. And the secondary objective is, so long as we control our own priority objective chosen by our opponent, but it's in our deployment zone, so really there's like 1 or 2 choices, we will get 3 points at the end of our turn. So this is control our home objective is very important. Alright, so for putting up stuff, as far as the Tau, for shooting, I need some good line of sight shooting and such, so I need places where I can just have the enemy baited into certain places and just wipe them out. But I do need some base cover just in case he gets the first turn, so I can have my guys hidden from whatever. And that's pretty much all that I had in my mind.
Yeah, so essentially almost the exact same thing for me. I don't really want to get shot very much. So buildings and walls, so that way my units can scurry from spot to spot without hopefully getting too shot to death, was the idea. And we will see if the idea has worked. Yeah.
Alright, so for secondaries, for the Tau, decisive action, which is, depending on the battle philosophy I take, if it's the first 3 turn one, then if I control half or more of the objectives in the first 3 turns, I get 4 extra points. So this is a maximum of 12 points I could gain. Very risky, but considering how I'm playing the game, I figured it'll work. And I have grind them down because his army is basically going to double in size unit-wise into small units because of how the Deathwatch works, so I figured this is the best chance. And then raise the banners high because I couldn't find a third. I have a lot of extra units who may not be doing much in the first few turns, so alright, whatever. That's all I can think of.
Yeah, so I wanted to, so most of the Space Marine books are 8th edition still, so they only have 1 secondary. So Deathwatch was the first one that I've played that actually has 3 or 4, because it's a 9th edition one, because I haven't played any of the 9th edition ones. So I was like, well, let me take all of them, except for obviously 1, because you can't have 4. So the first one is Long Vigil. So essentially, in my command phase, at the start of it, I get 4 victory points if there are no enemy units wholly within my deployment zone, and there's at least one of my units wholly within my deployment zone. I can't score that obviously on the first battle round because that's like cheating basically. Yeah, so basically I just have to keep them out of my deployment zone, not my territory, my deployment zone. I don't know if that'll be easy or not, but I figure why not? I'll give it a go. The second one is Call Order. So I basically choose 3 battlefield roles, and then at the end of the battle, I get 4 victory points if I was able to wipe that role off the map. So whether that's his Lord of War, his fast attacks, his troop, whatever it is. I don't know what that is just yet, but I'll figure that out before we roll to see who goes first or whatever. And then Suffer Not the Unclean to Live. So this one is obviously Deathwatch or anti-aliens. And so basically I get 1 point at the end of each of the battle. So this is just as I go through for every unit I wipe off. And it only works against, the alien armies, so Tyranids, Eldar, Orc, Necrons, and Tau. And I guess Leagues of Votann now, but, haven't really fought them yet. But anyway, and so whenever I kill one of his units, I get a victory point. So, it's not models, it's units, so we'll see. But yeah.
Alright, so for deployment, as far as the Tau, I have very few units. A good portion of my guys are in reserves. My Vespids, my Crisis Suits are all in reserves, and my Breacher teams are in their transports. And so basically I was playing safe, covering both the top and bottom. My Ghost Keel took the middle, and the Riptide is in a middle position, and then I put my Commander in middle position because of his high mobility. And so mostly I planned for a more reactive. I'm going to act as necessary to try to counter stuff. Fortunately, I can't really tell where his base of power is, but like during the time, I didn't really have that many units I could use to try to bait out the key units. So I ended up just going for more of a reactive deployment.
Yeah, so so I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot that was super like, I don't know if intentional is the word. It's like my last Fusils, I wanted them back there on the building because they could just sit back and snipe stuff with their tiny las cannons. And then the infiltrators, obviously I wanted them to block off as much of my deployment zone as possible. So that was intentional. But other than that, I had my slower units move to the bottom because there's just more building cover there. So there's an initial just weirdly open stretch that they'll just have to survive as they go across, but once they get past that, it's just kind of buildings. And then my speedier units I kept up at the top, at least top of my screen. I guess it's the bottom for you guys. So that way, because theirs is more open, it'll allow them to kind of go faster, I guess, and make their choices and do whatever they're doing. But yeah, so that was kind of as far as intentionality went. Everything split into combat squads except my fast attacks. So everything kind of got split up, but they still have like their kill team specializations and all that stuff. And so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
And lastly, the mission, we were supposed to move the objectives before deployment, but we just forgot. So we will be disadvantaged and move them immediately. And so we'll both be screwed. Alright, so for who goes first, we... basically, as far as I can tell, if I go first, I'm easily going to get the first 3 objectives without being contested, so that's 4 points automatically for me. I'm also going to get the secondary for 3 points. Easy. Essentially, if I go first, it's just me moving, taking the map, which is the goal, but I have no real targets. If you go first, I'm pretty much in a good position and pretty clear, safe and sound. So if I went second, I would prefer it because it would give me a more target-rich environment and give me more ability to counter you and your movements. So I would say I would want to go second. Yes, that's what I'm thinking. What do you got?
Yeah, I think I too would like to go second. Obviously, you moving around the board is probably better for me because then I can actually probably target stuff. Most of my stuff is pretty well hidden. I think it would be hard pressed to really see anything in the first turn, except obviously my las fusils who are touching the window, for better or worse. But of course, whatever shoots them, they can also shoot back. So I guess that's something. I didn't really going first, even though it allowed me to make the first moves. With as much melee stuff as I have, I feel like it would be a super boring turn. So I think I want to go second.
All right.
Yeah.
So we both want to go second, so one of us is going to be disappointed. And quick notes on our decisions on where to move the stuff. Oh, shoot, this isn't even locked. So essentially, he had, because he was the attacker, he had to move one of the objectives first in A or B. A is on left, B is on right. And so he chose to make it easier for him and move one of his objectives into more better state for him, but it's kind of out in the open and I can contest it, so I don't know what he was thinking. And then I got to move one of B and one of A. So I decided to make it hard for him and take his main home objective here and put it out in a place where I could contest it and I could shoot guys off of it if he puts it there. And then I took the top left objective, which was an A, and I moved it down to make it easier for me to control him better, because I realized that the way the terrain is positioned, he can't really harm me when it comes to trying to move my home objective. And so that's what I was thinking. And then finally he...
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, kind of my thoughts, I was like, I could either move one of his and make it difficult for him. So I was looking at the one that he moved as well in his zone. But I was like, I should probably make sure I have somewhat of an easier time. Because even if you can sit down and touch on it, everything I have is objective secured, and anything that you have that could combat that is pretty easy to die given what's back there. So I wasn't super worried about that aspect of it. However, we also have to note a priority objective for the opponent, which is the one that they have to hold on to. So, fun fact.
Mm-hmm. All right, then. Let's see who goes first. Well, there's only one objective we can choose, so, where's the choice?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I got a 1. I think yours is caught.
I can't see it. Is it?
No, I guess it's not. It's a 2, though.
Great. I go first, then. So, Tau, turn 1. Alright, so for my pre-movements, my Kroot and my Pathfinders get a free 7-inch move, so they just moved up. Taking objectives, going to the window since I'm first turn, so that's pretty good. And yeah. Alright, so for the movement phase, I just move my Kroot up to take positions, to block off potential combat from the L's. They have to be charged from the back. My Devilfish move forward in positions where they could do some damage. The Ethereal moved onto the objective, and so now the Kroot, all the Kroot are doing Raise the Banners, the Ethereal's doing Raise the Banners. The Ethereal's also in the command phase. I started moving, I just forgot it. But he was going to do his invocation, so he did the one that gives him a free command point. He failed it, so there's no point in re-rolling that because it defeats the purpose. And the Riptide moved on top where he has line of sight, and I'm fairly confident in his tankiness, at least from this range, from what he has. And then Pathfinders moved up. They got all their guns and things ready, so we'll see how this goes. All right, so for the shooting phase, I don't really have much in range. The Pathfinders, I was supposed to do this in the movement phase, but it doesn't really amount to anything here because Pathfinders can do this first and then move. They didn't move, so it didn't affect anything. It's just I forget some of the Tau rules or the time when it's supposed to happen. So they did marker lights on the Eliminators he had in his runes and marker lights on his Veteran Bikers because they have to be within 36 inch range, and so I got a bunch of marker lights off on them. And that was it. And then the bottom Devilfish fired his 2 one-use only Seeker missiles on the bikes and killed 1. I used a CP reroll to hit 1 extra to hit. Then I had the rest of his guns fire at the nearby Deathwatch veteran squad that was nearby and successfully do 1 wound with its 8 smart missile shots. After that, then I had my Riptide up top fire at the Eliminators. So I also forgot to do in his command phase his overcharge thingy, but it was why it didn't change anything. It only matters if he fails it, if he has less wounds. And so basically he added 2 extra shots to his ion accelerator. So he fired the standard shots. He did 2 successful wounds, went through, and killed 2. Here's a question, if anyone can answer it. So basically, my Riptide has the ability to ignore light cover. So essentially, it's target lock, and the wording is, each time the bearer makes a ranged attack, the target does not receive the benefit of light cover against the attack. Now the thing is, according to the Eliminators, if they're in cover, they get +1 extra to their save, and this runes thing only gives light cover. And so it's like, I ignore light cover. Does that also negate their additional save? Because we were like, he ignores light cover, so they don't get the benefit of it, so ruins it, or eliminates his thing. So that's what we were thinking, but we're not fully sure, because the game is deep. So apart from that, then the Riptide fired his other weapons, his 2 plasma rifles, and successfully wiped out the rest of the squad, both hit and both wounded. And that was it for my shooting phase. Alright, so for the first turn, I got secure missing artifacts. I control the priority objective in my deployment zone, which is only 1. And I got my decisive action for the first turn. I can only get up to 12 because I'm using the special ability. I don't remember what it's called, the battle philosophy thingy. I got a marker for grind them down. If my opponent doesn't kill a single squad, I will get 3 points. And I have 3 raise the banners on their way. So let's see what happens.
Alright, you guys, so for command phase, the Watchmaster gave the Terminators the Chapter Master rerolls to hit. And then Chaplain Cassius gave the... what are they? The Indomitor kill team with the Heavy Intercessors and the Eradicators +1 to hit. So that'll help with all their heavy weapons since they moved. And then... what's it called? Then that was the command phase. So then movement, basically almost everything ran forward. So my fast attack veteran bikers ran, obviously since they're a dedicated squad of bikes, they were able to just auto move an additional 6. So they had a 20-inch move, which put them right up by the middle here. These bikes had to roll forward because they have a Vanguard vet in their thing, but they rolled a 5, so they moved 17. The Deathwatch veterans with the heavier bolt guns rolled like a 1 or a 2, so that was kind of pathetic. And then the Indomitor kill team also they just moved farther into the terrain, so that way they can see out. My Inceptors actually did not move because I didn't know what I want to do with them just yet. But then the Deathwatch veterans, I rolled a 5 on their run. They were able to move a total of 11 inches, putting them on the middle objective. I think he still has... I have 2 guys on it. I think he has more Kroot, which are apparently objective secured.
I have 4 Kroot.
So they're sitting... Yeah, so I think he still has that one. And then my Deathwatch veterans with the shotguns ran. They have assault guns, but there's really nothing for them to shoot at either, I don't think. And then my Terminators did not run because I want to shoot their missile pod things at the Riptide. Or maybe his commander, actually. He's just chilling over there.
Good luck.
But yeah, so that is what is happening right now. That was the movement phase. Alright, you guys, so for the psychic phase, the Librarian isn't really in range for just about any of his things, and there's nothing in line of sight that's in range. So I just had him give his 5 of Feel No Pain to the Deathwatch Terminators. They needed a 6, rolled an 8. And so all I have to do is remember that is what they can do. And yeah, that was my psychic phase. Alright guys, so for this shooting phase, my Deathwatch veterans at the... Huh?
Keep going.
Okay, Deathwatch veterans at the bottom shot at the devilfish because that's all they could see. One shot went through because they only had the 5 shots, and they were able to do 2 damage. And then the squad, the Indomitor kill team with the heavy intercessors and then the Eradicator shot as well, and they all just failed sadly. The one Melta shot that went through was D6 plus 2. And I rolled a 1, so 3 damage went through. So I guess I did 5 damage to a devilfish, but he should have died. So like the Melta missed and everything. Like it was just really sad.
Massive whips.
Yeah. And then the Terminators shot their missiles at the Riptide. 3 went through, but he sent them both, or all 3 of them, on his shield drones. One of the drones saved, but the other 2 went through, destroying the drones. Of course, the damage rolls that I was rolling would have probably killed the Riptide if all 3 had actually gone through. But at least it doesn't have really any defense anymore.
Yeah, 30 points well spent on drones.
Yeah. Does it have an invuln save?
It has a native one, yes. It has a 2-up and a 4-up.
Okay, yeah, so I guess it still has its own thing going for it. But yeah, so that was my shooting phase. There really isn't a bunch in range, but we both knew that going into the first battle round. So really, the next turns are where it's going to be interesting to see what lives and dies. All right, you guys, so at the end of my turn, I got 3 points for secure the missing artifacts, just because I control the priority objective. And then I didn't get any other secondaries, because Suffer Not the Alien, I didn't kill any of his units. Long Vigil, I can't claim in my
First
turn. So, and then Call Order is at the end of the game. So he was also able to get Grind Them Down because he killed...
I killed 1 unit, you didn't kill anything.
Yeah, what was it? The Erratic... No,
yeah.
The...
Eliminators.
Whoever they were. Yeah, there you go, Eliminators. And so that was it.
Alright, so for movement, I spent 1 CP to have my Devilfish do their Breacher thing, or Combat Debarkation, where they can move and drop off the guys, but the guys can't charge. But in the command phase, I had my Ethereal roll to see if he gets the command point. He failed it. Roll to see if he gives the Pathfinders near him 5-up Feel No Pains. Failed it. Okay, so
naturally.
Whatever. Naturally. Yes. And a Riptide gave his gun, did the nuclear core thing. He gave his gun buff or whatever. And then it came down to movement. So the Devilfishes moved forward, disgorged their breachers to counteract his infantry. The Crude stayed where they were. The Ghost Keel went to the wall, so now he has line of sight, so he can start shooting out. My Riptide stayed where it was, and my Commander in Cold Star Battlesuit moved up towards the middle, a pretty decent, mid-ground. In the end, he originally was going to have him run, but there was no real place to put him, that he wouldn't get obliterated by the Meltas. Well, actually, he probably would have survived with how my opponent's rolling, but... Then at the end of the turn, I brought in my reinforcements. I brought in my Crisis Battle Suits around my commander, and of course all their drones. Then I put in all the Vespids on the north and south to give support fire. And once again, I forget about my marker lights, but I'll do that later. And that was my movement phase. Alright, so for the shooting phase... what did I start off with? So I started off with the Riptide Battlesuit, firing at the guys in the middle, and he killed a good amount of them. And then my commander in the Cold Star Battlesuit fired and successfully was able to finish them off. Then I had my breachers up top fire at the guys up there and killed a few of them, but didn't finish them off. And I can't remember the order, but then I had the Vespids later on fire at them and kill them off. Then I had the Crisis Bodyguards all fire at the Terminators in the middle, and they successfully did 2 wounds despite being loaded with Melta guns, these fusion blasters, which are Melta guns, and successfully 2 went through and only did 2 wounds in total. Each one did 1 wound because of his ridiculous 5-up Feel No Pains from his Psyker. That pretty much saved. He kept rolling 5-ups. That was ridiculous. My Ghost
was
Kill
pretty great.
battle suit fired at the veteran bikers that were in front of him and did absolutely nothing. The Breachers on the bottom fired their very strong Strength 6 AP-2 guns on the veteran bikers and successfully wiped out 2 of them. The Vespids on the bottom fired at the Deathwatch veterans down there as well and successfully killed 2 of them. The Devilfish then poured all of its fire into them and did absolutely nothing. The Devilfish up top fired his weapons at the Terminators in front, did absolutely nothing until it went to his one-use only Seeker missiles, in which case he successfully killed off 1. And then, he actually killed off 2. 1 missile was able to kill 1. I had to spend a CP to re-roll it. And then I had to have my... and then my other one was able to wound him, and he wasn't able to make all the 5-ups needed. And so it was a very strong shooting phase, but not strong enough. Alright, a strong first turn, but similar to the last, or strong second turn. I get another set of decisive actions. Then I have 2 units wiped out for grind them down, and I gain 3 points for my raise the banners high, and also I had hold 1, hold 2, hold more. So I'm shooting off ahead, but we'll see what happens in the next turn.
Alright, you guys, so with command phase, my Watchmaster gave the Terminators full reroll to hits, and Chaplain Cassius gave +1 to hit on the Heavy Intercessors and the Eradicators, the Indomitor kill team, if you will. And then in the movement phase, I don't really have a lot left to move, so it was pretty straightforward. Everything moved forward. The bikers moved straight up onto the middle objective. The 1 biker and Vanguard vet moved up to the side of the Devilfish because there's an off chance they won't be there, and then they can move and attack the Kroot. The heavy shooters on the bottom stayed, so they can shoot. The Terminators, Codicir Natorian, the Watchmaster, and the Inceptors all moved forward. And then the Infiltrators also moved forward while still being able to block a huge 12-inch bubble, just in case. I don't think he has anything that can re-deep strike, but just in case, I guess. And they just are sitting on the home objective. So that was the movement phase. Alright, you guys, so for the psychic phase, Codicir Natorian, my librarian, I'm just going to call him my librarian from now on, gave a 5-up feel no pain to the Deathwatch Terminators, and he did his bubble mortal wound thing, psychic cleanse. So I did 4 mortal wounds to the Breachers, which was pretty cool, and then nothing to the Devilfish and nothing to the Vespids, so it petered out pretty quick. But yeah, that was it. Alright, you guys, so for shooting, there was a lot that went on. First off, the veteran biker and the Vanguard vet shot at the Breacher Fire Warriors. I think they killed 1, I think. And then the Deathwatch veterans with the Stalker pattern bolt guns shot at the Vespids. They did not kill anything. Then the heavy intercessors shot everything into the Vespids. I say everything, there's only 6 shots. I think they killed 1. And then the Eradicators shot with their total obliteration on the Devilfish. And I didn't even get to the multi-melter. The heavy melter rifle guy killed it. I rolled a 6 on the damage, and it's +2, so he did a flat 8, which is all the wounds it had left. So it died, did not explode, and that was nice. Then moving to the top half, I didn't know what to do with the Terminators at first, so I avoided shooting with them until last. So the bikers in the middle, 1 guy was able to shoot at his Cold Star commander, and so he shot. So 3 wounds went through, surprisingly, and he took them on his shield drones. Shield drones saved all but 1, so 1 of them has 1 wound. And then the other 3 guys shot at his crisis bodyguards, put it all on the drones, and then I was able to kill 2 drones, so he failed 4 saves there. And then I forget who's here. Okay, so the Watchmaster and Natorian shot at the Vespids. I think they killed 1, maybe?
Yeah.
And then the Inceptors shot, and they killed the rest of them. They had, I think, 7 went through at like -4 or something. And Vespids only have a single wound, so they took that one pretty hard. And then the biggest surprise was the Terminators shot their crack missiles. Crack missiles. At the Ghost Keel. And so so they all hit, even though he was -1 to hit because they had the Chapter Master rerolls. And so all hit, and then 5 went through, so only 1 failed the wound roll. 2 went on his stealth drones. They didn't have a shield because they're not shield drones, so they just died. And then the other 3 went through, and then I rolled, he failed those 3 saves. And then I rolled 2 6s and a 4, I think, doing just enough wounds. I think. Or no, I guess it would have been 4 over because he only has 12. But either way, he did not explode. And then that was that. So that was convenient. So yeah, that was that. All right, you guys. So 4 charges. I actually don't remember where I started. I think it was the Terminator. So the Terminators got in. They needed like a 1 or a 2. They got in. Then the Watchmaster charged the Breacher Fire Warriors next. He got in, as did my Librarian. So far, no issues. Then my Deathwatch Veterans charged the Breacher Fire Warriors because I'll probably never take these guns again on them, but their shooting is doing nothing. So I figured they could at least try and bully them a little bit and, beat them up a little bit. Because those guys also are terrible in combat. So we'll see how we go. And then the Veteran Biker and the Vanguard Vet charged the Crute, but they actually failed the first one, so I had to use a command point to re-roll it, and then they were able to get in. Just because the Biker isn't quite as flexible on the charge as the Vanguard Vet is. The guys in the middle charged the Cold Star Commander and his bodyguards, so that happened as well. Alright, you guys, so for combat, I started off with the Bikers onto his Commander, because I hate him. No, well, yes, but because he was the only one worth him interrupting on. So I swung on him first because I didn't want to risk that, because he has some relic hand. And I was able to kill off one of his drones and do 2 damage. So now he has no drones and only 5 wounds left. Obviously, in return, he did kill 3 of the bikes. So there's that. But then I went on, the Watchmaster and the Librarian were able to polish on there. And then the Terminators ruthlessly destroyed that Devilfish. I think they did 15 damage to it. So super savage with those chain fists. It did not explode, thank goodness. And then moving down, my little Deathwatch veteran squad, fighting the Breachers, they were able to kill 1. I think they killed 1 with their punches. So they punched 1 to death. And then he swung. Nothing really came of that one though. And then the Biker and Vanguard Vet were able to kill 4, I believe, Crute. And then 1 ran off in morale, but the rest actually stuck around because they're angry. And that was the combat phase. A little back and forth. So I probably got the upper hand in it, with the exception of the Commander in the middle. That one did not go in my favor. But what are you going to do? Alright, you guys, so for this turn, I held 1 and I held 2. I didn't hold more, so I got 2 points in the primary. I have the Secure Missing Artifact, or the priority objective. And then Long Vigil I was able to get at the beginning of my command phase. And then Call Orders at the end, but I still haven't gotten it, so I need to wipe out his elites, his fast attacks, and his troops. Or no, what did I say? It was HQs, so troops, fast attacks, and HQs is what I'm reaching for. And then Suffer Not the Alien, so I wiped off 5 units, and so I got 5 points for that. I feel like that's, for wiping off whole units, that's actually not a lot of points. Anyway, but so relatively good on secondaries and even the primary, but next turn may be very different.
Alright, so for movement phase and command phase, first command phase, the Ethereal tried to roll 3 up to get a command point. He did not again. And he rolled 3 up to try to give the Pathfinders Feel No Pain just because they were the only thing nearby. He did not. So then I had him eventually just fly 10 inches over towards the vanguards. The crew retreated back onto the point. The Vespids on the bottom ran. This is the last turn that I can use my ability, the philosophy, which allows them to run and treat as being stationary. Now, normally the Vespids would not be able to get this, but this specific, the Daleth Sept, allows them to receive these abilities. So this is the last turn I can do it, so might as well. And then my commander in Cold Star moved towards the bot, like finagled over. His Crisis Bodyguards moved around as well. The Riptide moved to where I have some good line of sight for stuff, and now we will see what happens. So let's see how the shooting phase goes. Alright, so heavy shooting phase. So basically, the purple squad of Breacher team on the bottom fired, used a 1 CP strat to turn their guns to pistol 2s, and so they fired and successfully did 3 wounds. Absolute terrible with their 4 ballistic skill. The Vespids fired all their guns at the squad because they could see it, the back of the squad there, and they killed 1 guy. And then my what should I call it? My commander, fiddling around with the stupid detail. Oh no, my Pathfinders fired all their guns at the Vanguard, or the Vanguard veteran and the biker there, since apparently 1 squad, and killed the biker outright. And then the Vanguard only took 1 wound because of the mortal wounds from the rail rifles. He saved he had to make a bunch of saves. He made like 9 saves just straight up from all their pulse rifles. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was impressive.
Yeah. And then it came to shooting. The commander fired the Terminators because he had line of sight. He killed 1, I believe, or did a good amount of wounds to it. Then the Riptide fired all his guns at them and successfully wiped them out. And then the Crisis Bodyguards fired their guns at the Inceptors that are up top, successfully killed 1. Even though 2 Meltas got through, I rolled a 1 for damage on 1, so then the other, I rolled a 2, which the other one was automatically kill. So 2 Meltas only killed 1 guy, and the rest of their shots from their missile pods only did 2 wounds. Only 1 went through, and it was damaged 2. And so then the rest of them had some Melta guns that could not reach them, so I had him split fire to the biker that was right in front, and they deleted him outright with 3 wounds that got through, so I didn't even bother to roll. And that was the shooting phase. And then I just had the Ethereal charge the Vanguard veteran that was there. Made it easily. Alright, I made a tactical mistake. I should have charged my commander in Cold Star in as well. I don't know, I just thought it would be easy. Yeah, that was a dumb thing.
It almost was.
Yeah, so the Ethereal swung, did absolutely nothing. He saved all the attacks. And then my opponent swung, and my shield drone took him and blocked them all. And then he had his 2 guys swing on my guys at the bottom and successfully kill 3 of them somehow. And then my Breacher swung back, did absolutely nothing. And they passed their morale. And that was the fight phase. Alright, so for points, at the beginning of my turn, I controlled 1, controlled 2, control more. I have, secure missing artifacts for my turn. I have it for this turn as well. I didn't count it last turn. It's the 3rd turn in, and I have control of my main objective. I have completed decisive action. I've had half or more of the objectives for the first 3 turns of the game because of my battle philosophy. Grind them down, I got 2 points on it for 2 markers on it for 2 units I destroyed this turn. And raised the banners high, gave me an extra 3 points this turn. So far I am doing really good on points, but we'll see what happens.
Alright, you guys, so for movement, for the command phase, Chapter Master gave full rerolls to the Inceptors, and then Cassius gave the Indomitor, kill team, +1 to hit like he has been. Then in movement, he moved out to go fight the Vespids to the death. The Deathwatch veterans pulled back from the Breacher Fire Warriors. The Infiltrators kind of condensed and are looking at those guys as well. The Inceptors moved into cover, Watchmaster moved farther into covers where he couldn't be seen, and Natorian is moving forward to fight the crew single-handedly. And we'll see what happens. Alright, you guys. So, Librarian used Smite on his Crisis suits. I was able to get the full D6 mortal wounds, of which I rolled a 1, used a command point, got a 3, and then he popped off some of his drones. And then I used Psychic Cleanse, his 9-inch bubble one, and was able to kill off 3 Kroot with it. And that was it. Alright, you guys, so there was a bunch of shooting that kind of went around. I'm trying to remember it, though. Oh, yeah, okay, so the infiltrators shot at his purple squad, and they killed 1? 2?
3.
1. 3?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right.
3 in total.
Maybe.
Over the well, not that one guy, but like...
So they killed some.
Yeah.
And then the heavy intercessors and the eradicators split fire. The eradicators total obliterated the Vespids, and they totally obliterated them. And then the heavy intercessors, with their bolter and everything, shot, and they left 2 alive. So 3 total breachers died, 2 survived. And that was their shooting. And then the Inceptors overcharged or supercharged on his Crisis bodyguards, Crisis bodysuits. And I don't know how many went through, but I killed off the last of his drones. And no wounds came back to me because his guys, they had the full reroll hits. And because Elites was my overall choice, they got a reroll 1 on that wound roll. And, well, actually, that ended up being a 1 again, so that didn't even matter. But yes, that was the shooting phase. Alright, you guys, so I charged with my Librarian. He rolled a 7, and so he was able to get in. He only needed a 6 to get to where he's at. And then we stopped recording, but I forgot that I wanted to at least try and get Cassius in. He needed like a 9 or a 10. I actually rolled a 10 on the dot, and so he was actually able to get in and fight these breachers. So hopefully he'll be able to wipe them out. And so yeah, that'll be kind of cool. Alright, you guys, so for combat it went pretty well for me. The Librarian killed 4 Kroot, so all of his attacks hit, all of them wounded, or yeah, and then they all went through, because it's -4 for some reason. And then Cassius swung, he had 5 go through, he saved 2, but still 3 went through. And that was, he only had 2 guys left, so that cleared that squad. Then he swung with his Ethereal, so I had to do 1 save. I failed. I used my command point, and I passed it. And then I swung back, and only 1 went through. He put it on his drone, and then
I used my reroll on it.
Yep, used his reroll on it, and then still failed. So the drone died, and now the Ethereal is droneless. But of course, they're both just 1 wound away from dying. So I guess whoever swings next, or yeah, we'll see. And that was the combat. Then morale happened. The Kroot failed, so 1 ran off, but then the other 2 were fine. And yeah, and that was the turn.
All right, everyone. We decided to call it there because the Deathwatch player decided that he can't make it back up. As Tau,
Yeah,
I have.
so even though I got up to probably about 50 points on my turn, I didn't have much left to work with, and you probably had most of your stuff was dead, but you still had like the core of like your heaviest shooting. And so I don't think I would have been able to really do anything around that.
Yeah, my Crisis bodyguards, the Riptide, my commander were all alive and well. So, MVP, LVP. So for me, first off, I believe it is obvious, based entirely off of performance, that the Ethereal is the LVP of my army. Every single time he had a chance to just simply roll a 3-up and get his invocation and me get a command point, he failed. And then he continued to fail with giving the Feel No Pain to the Pathfinders. Even though it really was pointless to give it to them, it's still the fact is he could not. He never got off a single invocation. And then, when he had a chance to redeem himself with his decent weapon, charged into that one captain, he had to do 1 wound, and every single time he failed to do a single wound. It was
Makes me feeling better though. That same guy that he was fighting also failed to do a single wound to him.
Well, no, you actually did. My drone took it.
Oh yeah, but that was just one.
Because of my 4-up invulnerable save. So without a doubt, he's an absolute 80-point LVP failure. Now, moving on to MVP, it's actually quite close. So, Kroot were very good instrumental. They filled out the board, they held the objectives in the back, and they helped to the... because they were not able to shoot, they did a lot of the strategic stuff. So strategically, these guys were very important for my army. The other one is the commander, Cold Star. He stacked a lot of bodies. He killed a lot, especially in the melee. He absolutely slaughtered them with his relic, the Onager Gauntlet. That thing absolutely destroyed 3 bikes in one go. Absolutely incredible. And so he was very reliable. He was constantly like chipping at the enemy in large chunks, or taking out chunks of their forces reliably. Also because he had the Warlord trait that allowed him to Precision of the Hunter, allow him to reroll all hits and wounds, and his Nova Surge plasma rifle that ignored invulnerable saves. Very good against those Terminators. And then finally my Riptide, because every time it shot, it obliterated so much. And so, yeah, he finished off the Terminators, wiped out the Eliminator squad. Every time he went up to fire, it wasn't massive chunks of the army, but it was very important high armor targets. So, in the end, true MVP is going to be the Riptide, because he didn't even take a single wound, and he was just a huge force of nature, just wiping out all the key units. And I could have put my battle suits on here, but once again, I did not give them enough anti-armor. Honestly, like, the less anti-armor I have, the worse they are. Like, those missile pods just were not good enough. If I would have given them the fusion rifles, which is basically a long-range melta, except 3 damage instead of d6, they would have had completely obliterated way more. They would have been far more effective. And so it's like, the more anti-armor I go, the better they perform. Oh wait, I also forgot to mention the Ghost Keel. Even though he wasn't an MVP, he's definitely another LVP. 160 points of failure. But not as bad as the Ethereal, who had many chances to do something and didn't. But yeah. And so, LVP, Ethereal, MVP, Riptide. So what was yours?
Yeah, so, I don't know. I feel like everything just kind of performed adequately. So really the only 2 standouts to me are the Terminators. Their Chain Fist, their Cyclone Missile Launchers, they were able to do a good bit of damage. Now, granted, most of the damage was absorbed by shield drones, which are super annoying, but those have always annoyed me about the Tau, because they're just so dumb. But then the Eradicators as well. Other than the first round of shooting, because I think they whiffed really hard. The other 2 turns, they got at. Granted, the targets weren't really difficult at that point, but still. So I would say they did pretty well. Not the rest of the squad, just the Eradicators. As far as like MVPs go, I would say that's it. You could say maybe the Watchmaster, because his, hit rerolls was pretty good. And there are some stratagems I could have done with him that just never came up. But so I would say most of my army did relatively okay for itself. It is pretty hard to deal with Tau firepower when most of the army is pretty slow. Of course, but that leads me to my LVP, which is the Bikers of all squads. They just really didn't do anything. They were fast, so that was nice, but they got picked off pretty quick. And when they did get in, they didn't really do any damage either. So I would say the bikes were probably my LVPs. Other stuff they got wiped off, like the Eliminators, I'm sure had they had a chance they would have done okay. Because there was just a lot of higher toughness targets. Other squads like my Deathwatch veterans that were in the middle, they got shot off before they could do anything. I'm sure they would have been just fine. The only other runner-ups maybe was these Deathwatch guys with the heavy, with the stalker pattern bolt gun. That was crap. So yeah, I would say bottom of the barrel is those guys, because again they just didn't really do very much. They were fast, which is what I needed. They actually got into combat, unlike most of the army. But when they got there, they couldn't do anything. Now, granted, a lot of their damage that they did do ended up rolling off onto shield drones, which was again annoying. But then everything had like 4-up invuln saves, so it's like even at best, like their potential for their single damage attacks was 50-50. So I think that kind of kneecapped them a bit. Now, granted, I probably could have sent them to different targets, and so I'm sure there's tactically some things I could have done differently. So like they could have gone after the Kroots on the sides or whatever instead of focusing on the heavier targets. But yeah, so that's what I would say.
All right, then. So, overall thoughts on the armies?
Well, so I think your Tau list was probably a bit better. I mean, the last one also like did a lot of damage, so I can't even say that. I was able to claim enough points though that the damage you did didn't matter. This one was not quite. So the secondaries I thought were actually pretty nifty for the Deathwatch. They were difficult to put together. Now, basically my entire army was troops, so that was actually pretty cool because of the kill teams. But what that does do, like, it gives you a lot of flexibility. So I was like, most of my units were able to split off into combat squads, and they were able to do, you know, a bunch of different stuff because of that. And then I had stratagems that like turned off marker lights or whatever, and so that was really interesting. They're definitely like a little Swiss Army knife army. But with the kill teams, what I found is that it takes away some of the just like the specifics of the units. So like I never had any sergeants or for anything other than like the base units, which weren't super great. And so I think there's some give and take with them, but I think they could be done well. I probably would do maybe more Vanguard vets or Outriders as opposed to just the regular veteran bikers. The two characters, they weren't terrible. I don't know if they were worth the points. I mean, they both, you know, the chaplain literally just buffed stuff, and then he made his one charge and killed the two guys. The librarian did a fair amount of mortal wounds, I would say, and was able to kill stuff. So, I don't know. I like the Deathwatch, but there's definitely a lot in them, both with the special ammos, all the kill teams with their cans and can't do's. You know, there's some units they can't take, and so I thought the Deathwatch was actually really, really interesting. It was complicated, so it took me a little bit to just understand the army. I know the current tournament lists that are being played with them are really more like dreadnought castles, and then flexible kill teams that can just like focus on points and stuff, while the dreadnoughts just wipe the floor with stuff. Because you can get a character with a shield, and then there's a relic that allows him to give a 5-up invuln radius, so it's a 6-inch radius. And then coupled with a tech marine, like they make a really nasty castle. And so, but I did like the army. I think they're the kind of army that you need to play a couple of times to really kind of key in its true strengths. But again, having my entire army objective secured was actually really cool, because you only had the Kroot really. I guess the breachers, but that were objective secured, so I could have gone and sat on something, and even with just an Inceptor, and you would have, had to kill him to get him out, which I guess is always how it works. But yeah, so I actually really like the Deathwatch. The Tau weren't as scary as I thought they were going to be. I remember when they came out and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, I was tabled in like 1 turn, 2 turns, whatever it was." Now, granted, you're also new to them, so it's possible there's an even uglier list out there.
Yeah, and I take what appeals to me, essentially. I tried the Riptide. I mean, so I only brought 1. This Ghost Keel was a waste. But like the large amounts of troops, the tactical flexibility and stuff is what really gravitates to me. So like I have a whole army going forward. The Crisis bodysuits are really, really good. I like that a lot. It's just it's not a horde army, but it can get really close. Like a much stronger Imperial Guard, essentially, is what the Tau can be. They have a few nice, interesting tricks up their sleeve with the Crisis bodyguard suits, but yeah, it's more like hammer and anvil. Huge amounts of devilfish and troops rushing forward, doing massive damage, and then the Riptides and the Crisis suits and the General just coming in and slaughtering. And the fact is, the General has access to some of the best weapons, gear, and warlord traits in the game, but because they're Tau, it bounces out. Reroll all hits and wounds. Come on. Can you believe that? All hits and wounds from shooting and melee. And I mean, for crying out loud, he's also has he can have guys deep strike turn 1 on him if I choose to. That's ridiculous. He can get a gun that can ignore invulnerable saves. It's ridiculous. And it's not even a relic. And his relic, the Onager Gauntlet, is like that melee is so good. Strength 12, AP -4, 3 damage. It's like he is super powerful, and he just is average and mediocre in melee, and that's the only reason that he's holding him back from being a true monster. So
you can't be good at both. That would just be unfortunate.
Or at least cost decent. So overall, the Tau are pretty interesting. I liked the setup of the Auxilia. They're the Kroot and Vespids getting the abilities of the regular Tau and stuff like that, and just unique things about them and stuff. And this particular Sept getting all the forever cover was kind of a big deal as well, to counter enemy shooting and stuff like that. So it did help a lot. In some small cases. It could have been a bit better, but yeah, it did help. And so, yeah, it basically meant all my battle suits had 2-up armor saves, essentially, on shooting.
Yeah, and so that coupled with all the shield drones made them really, really annoying to deal with.
I mean,
not really sure how you even... I guess maybe just a lot of shots, but...
Yeah, essentially, those shield drones were 15 points piece, and the squad that had 5 of them, 5 times 15, that's like 75 points just in sponge.
Yeah, it was probably enough damage, honestly, that went through to those shield drones to wipe at least half the squad, if not the whole squad as well.
Yeah, the Riptide would have probably died if it wasn't for the shield drones. Yeah, because you got those ridiculous, like,
high damage rolls.
15 damage. It's like, I got it.
Yeah, well, that's what did in the Ghost Keel.
Yeah, this
only
thing was...
3 wounds went through, but I rolled 14 damage, 2 6s and a 4.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. So the Tau are a bit more interesting than I thought. It's like, yeah, your shooting is super strong, but like only like a third or a quarter of your army got to me, and then just obliterated it. Yeah, so like that's one of the things you have to keep in mind. It's like I have to move forward and take the objectives, but if I get in combat, my guys are mostly going to die, and the only reason my commander can survive is because of his relic weapon and just the drones. That's pretty much it. Apart from that, the Achilles heel of the Tau, the melee problem, is really a big deal. Even the Kroot are just a mass spam of attacks at AP -1. That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
Alright, well then, GG's. I have no idea what's happening next week for playing. Even if you tell me, I'll forget it in like 5 seconds. But yeah, overall it was interesting time, interesting game, so GG everyone. See you next time. Bye.